people.
This morning, a new poll came out that shows the President of the United States, for the first time in over 2 years, has an approval rating of over 50%. John Heilman, what's going on?
He's winning. And I think, that you win victories, you show strength, even when it causes some degree of opposition. It's angered his opponents, but he's won on a series of things. And I think when you win over and over again, the country tends to, it's like a magnet drawn to, they see political victories and they get behind.
I said this about Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came in and everybody was screaming and yelling at him, but he won his 93 budget battle. He won on NAFTA. He won on all of these issues. And his numbers, at least in 93, went up.
And then he never won again.
And then he never won again.
After 1994, he never won again.
Well, except re-election in 1996.
Yeah, one re-election, but he never won in his job of governing.
Yeah. Let's look also, Alex, do we have the economy numbers? I think this is really telling, and really telling for Republicans who are trying to put together a campaign to win in 2016. Katty Kay, the majority of Americans actually support the president's handling of the economy. This is the first time since September 2009.
Yeah, and what's interesting is now actually other people are looking at the U.S. economy and thinking, it's looking a little bit more fragile than we had thought it was. The U.S. economy was held up as the darling of the world 6 months ago. Right. Today, not so much, but you look at those poll numbers, clearly Americans are starting to feel something is going better in the U.S. economy.
I hearken back to the interview with Mark Maron and Mark Maron's Garage when he said, I am now fearless. He is a free man. People sense that he's much stronger, feeling much stronger about himself and his prospects. He's won a couple of things. I think last Friday's performance was electric for the country. I think all of those combined to give people a much more comfortable feeling about the president than they had 2, 3, 4 months ago.
It's an interesting question. A number of African-American leaders asked the question after his speech on Friday, what would have happened if he'd given a speech like that at the beginning of his term? And more broadly, I think, Mike, your point raises that question, which is, what, as a counterfactual, what would the Obama administration have looked like had Barack Obama felt fearless from day one?
Well, the perfect example,
I know the answer to that question.
Perfect example is on gay marriage, and we've talked about it over the past week. He was as scared and as craven politically as anybody on gay marriage. In fact, Joe Biden completely excommunicated from the White House in 2012 because he dared to get ahead of the president before a campaign and a presidential election and say that he supported same-sex marriage. I think that's a question, Katty, that historians are going to be grappling with for some time.
Right, or maybe it's actually that the president owes Justice Roberts large bunches of flowers.
He actually does.
No, but if you were
maybe it's as simple as the wins in the Supreme Court. Yeah. I don't know when those numbers were actually taken, but he had a couple of big wins. I suspect a lot
of that has to do, and I'm certainly not demeaning it, I've always said that if I were president 6 years in this environment, I would be thrilled with a 47% approval rating. You get over 50% this far in, Lawrence, there are a lot of different factors going in there. But the president right now is those numbers should cause concern to Republicans that are trying to put together a strategy for 16.
Yeah, there's just no good news for Republicans in terms of their campaigns. But to go back to this marriage equality evolution of President Obama, if as a state senator in Illinois, he decided, what I really want to do is get marriage legal for everyone in the United States. Maybe, just maybe, he would have said exactly the same words he said on the days he said them over time, because politicians cannot always, in service to their cause, say exactly what they're thinking. There comes a time when you should say, you know what, I think we should raise the top income tax rate. That time usually isn't during the campaign.
But Lawrence, if this is a moral question,
yes,
and if now people like myself believe this should be taken up state by state, and suddenly we're compared to bigots who supported segregation, when in fact our position would be more positive than, say, Barack Obama saying, I am against same-sex marriage because I am a Christian, then I don't think we can ascribe any good motives to him on that front. Look, I think having the guts to say we need to raise your taxes is far different than something that now everybody is is framing in terms of a moral position.
I think if you ask advocates of same-sex marriage how helpful was President Obama, they would say extremely helpful, and I'm hearing nothing but gratitude for what he did over time.
Right.
And look, if one of the problems for politicians is if they get too far out ahead of the general population, it can be alienating.
So what
for him
about
at a certain time.
segregationist Democrats in the South? What about William Fulbright in the South, who, by today's standards, was racist? Do we cut him slack, saying, well, he couldn't get too far ahead on civil
I don't
rights?
cut him any slack at all.
So why do you cut Barack Obama slack? Because that was a moral issue.
I think
this is a moral issue. What's the difference?
I think they are different, and the question becomes, what can you do about it at what time? And but what the Democratic, and you should stress Democratic when you say segregationist, because a lot of people.
Trust me, I did.
Yeah, I know.
A
lot of people out there forget that this was basically run by the Democratic Party, Southern segregation. That was an unspeakable evil for which they were all guilty every day.
Well, I'll give you a relevant parallel that people around the president pointed to back in 2012. And again, you can argue that this was rationalization. But if you look back at the Second World War, there was a long period of time where Franklin Roosevelt lied to the country about his intention of putting American troops in Europe. And the reason that he did it was precisely the reason that Lauren said. He knew all along that you'd have to put troops in Europe, but you had to bring the American public opinion along. So he said, we're not going to do this. We're going to do Lend-Lease. We're going to do other things. And then eventually he got public opinion to the point.
All I'm saying is,
you have to get elected.
All I'm saying is, if you're going to compare the battle for same-sex marriage to the battle to end segregation in the South, when it suits your purposes on the left, then you have to compare the two when it doesn't suit your purposes on the left. So you can't say from the left side, well, you can't support marriage. You can't support marriage in the States because that makes you a racist and that makes you no better than George Wallace. But then say, well, but it's not the same when the president decides he's not going to have the courage to speak out on it. Either if it is a moral issue of top priority, then there is no justification for remaining silent for it. So I'm just saying the president can't have it both ways. And I think we've talked far too long about this, and I take full responsibility because this started with a president over 50%, which even though I oppose most of his policies, I think it is quite telling where the American people are right now and should be quite concerning to Republicans going into 16.
I mean, final point on Obama on this. Pretty much everyone Obama's age who was not gay at some point changed their minds about this subject. If you were to go back to 1980, Barack Obama was not thinking about this or had never thought. So for the president to allow people to watch him change his mind publicly, I think was actually helpful to the general momentum
And you
of
would
society.
say, just like George Wallace changed his opinion on
I think the question
segregation.
is, did President Obama change his mind?
Way too late. He was a segregationist every single day that it counted, and only in old age did he say, oh, gee, I guess I was wrong.
I think there's a real difference, though, between Barack Obama and Rob Portman. Rob Portman changed his mind because of something that happened in his family, because his son came
That's
up and
the Republican way.
Dad,
They can never do it because it's a good idea. It's just they're related to someone, so now they get it.
He actually did it. He actually did it well before Barack Obama.
I just
Because
wonder
he's
why.
related to someone. They cannot comprehend anything that involves someone they're not related to.
I want you to look at that in writing after you finish. That is about as condescending as Lawrence Tribe coming on here and saying conservatives once in a while follow the law.
I used to get it all the time when I was
come
working in the
on.
Senate. Republicans would come to me and say,
All right.
my nephew has this problem.
So, Caddy,
could you put that in the bill?
Go ahead, Caddy.